Commander Alaric Jensen stood frozen, his tall frame rigid with shock as he stared at the document hovering in holographic display before him. The trading station's dim lighting cast a blue glow across his features, highlighting the disbelief in his dark eyes. "This can't be right," he said, his deep voice tight with restraint. "I negotiated for mining rights on the SETI asteroid belt, not this." The station administrator, a reptilian Draxon with scales that shifted between green and gold, clicked its mandibles together in what passed for amusement. "The wager was clear, Commander." The Australian ambassador placed her handmaiden as collateral. "You won fairly." Alaric's gaze shifted to the slender figure standing several paces away. The alien woman was humanoid but unmistakably not human. Her luminescent skin had a faint purple undertone that seemed to pulse with internal light. Her eyes, large and completely silver without discernible pupils, were downcast. Elaborate markings adorned her temples and disappeared beneath the high collar of her iridescent garment. "On Earth, we don't own people," Alaric said firmly, taking a step back from the contract. "It's barbaric. Then perhaps humans should not engage in games of chance with species whose customs differ from your own," the administrator replied smoothly. "The documents are binding under Galactic Neutral Zone law. To refuse would create a diplomatic incident that the Earth Alliance can ill afford. The Australia are notoriously unforgiving." Alaric ran a hand through his short, dark hair in frustration. Earth had only recently gained provisional membership in the Galactic Alliance after decades of isolation. His mission was to secure resources for the struggling colonies, not to complicate interstellar relations with moral objections, however valid they might be. "What's your name?" he asked, addressing the alien woman directly. For the first time, she raised her gaze to meet his. There was a flash of something in those silver eyes, intelligence, pride, and something else he couldn't identify. "I'm called Taylor," she answered, her voice melodic with undertones that seemed to vibrate in the air between them. "I was companion to Ambassador Kelnari. And she just wagered you away?" Alaric couldn't keep the disgust from his voice. A slight lift of her delicate shoulders, almost human in its dismissiveness. "It is our way. My life belongs to my house, to use as they see fit." The administrator thrust the contract toward Alaric once more. "Your signature, Commander. Your vessel departs in 1 standard hour." With a deep sense of unease, Alaric pressed his thumb to the glowing panel. The contract flashed green, then disappeared into the station's database. "Congratulations on your acquisition," the administrator said with a final click of its mandibles before slithering away. 20 minutes later, Alaric led Taylor through the airlock of his ship, the Venture Star. He was acutely aware of the curious glances from his crew, though they were professional enough to maintain their duties without comment. "These will be your quarters," he said, stopping at a vacant officer's cabin. "I'll have Lieutenant Patel adjust the environmental controls to Australia preferences." Taylor tilted her head, her silver eyes studying him. "You need not provide me with such accommodations. I expected service quarters." "That's not how we do things here," Alaric replied firmly. "Whatever that document says, on my ship, you're not property. You're a guest until we can figure this situation out." Something flickered across her features, surprise, perhaps. "You are unusual for a human." "So I've been told," he said with a wry smile. "Rest. We'll talk more after departure." As he turned to leave, her voice stopped him. "Commander, you should know that Ambassador Kelnari does nothing without purpose. My presence on your ship may be complicated." Alaric looked back at her, noticing for the first time the intricate patterns that seemed to flow beneath her skin like bioluminescent circuitry. She was beautiful in an alien way that made his heart beat faster. "I'm counting on it," he answered before the door slid closed between them. In the corridor, Alaric exhaled slowly. The weight of command was familiar, but this new responsibility was something else entirely. He didn't know what game the Australia were playing, but he was determined not to be a pawn in it, and even more determined not to treat another sentient being as property, no matter what interstellar law dictated. As he walked to the bridge, he couldn't shake the memory of those silver eyes, or the strange sensation that Taylor was far more than she appeared to be. 2 weeks into their journey toward Earth's outpost on Europa, Alaric found himself constantly aware of Taylor's presence on his ship. The alien woman moved with graceful precision through the corridors, drawing curious glances from the crew whenever she passed. "She's accessing our database again, sir," Lieutenant Patel reported during their morning briefing. "Nothing classified, but she's consuming information at an unusual rate." "What kind of information?" Alaric asked, sipping the bitter synthetic coffee that was standard fare on long deployments. Earth history, cultural development, technological evolution. She seems particularly interested in our social structures. Patel hesitated. Sir, are we sure she's just a handmaiden? The depth of her question suggests advanced academic training. Alaric had been wondering the same thing. During their shared meals, a ritual he'd initiated to better understand her, Taylor asked questions that revealed a sharp, analytical mind. She spoke 5 Earth languages already, having absorbed them from the ship's educational databases with startling speed. Keep monitoring her access, but don't restrict it unless she tries to breach security protocols, he decided. Later that day, Alaric found Taylor in the ship's observation dome, her slender form silhouetted against the vast starfield beyond the transparent aluminum ceiling. The bioluminescent patterns beneath her skin pulsed gently in the dim light, matching the rhythm of distant pulsars. Your species builds beautiful ships, she said without turning, somehow sensing his approach. Inefficient in many ways, but beautiful. We do what we can with the technology we have, Alaric replied, moving to stand beside her. Though I suspect our ships are primitive compared to Australian vessels. Her silver eyes reflected the starlight when she turned to him. Different, not superior. Your people have accomplished much in a short evolutionary time span. Is that what you're studying? Our evolution? A smile touched her lips, too knowing for a simple handmaiden. Perhaps I simply wish to understand my new owner. The word hung between them, uncomfortable, and waited. I don't own you, Alaric said firmly. That document doesn't mean anything on my ship. And yet it means everything in the wider galaxy, she countered. Your personal feelings don't alter interstellar law, Commander. Then the law is wrong, he said with quiet intensity. Her expression shifted, the luminescence beneath her skin flaring briefly. A dangerous position for a junior representative of Earth. Before he could respond, the ship's alert system flashed, casting red pulses across the observation dome. Lieutenant Patel's voice came over the comm. Commander to the bridge. We're receiving a priority transmission from an approaching Australian diplomatic vessel. Taylor's posture changed instantly, subtle but unmistakable tension coursing through her frame. They shouldn't be here, she whispered, almost to herself. Come with me, Alaric decided impulsively. If the Australia were contacting them, it likely had something to do with her. On the bridge, the view screen displayed an elegant vessel with sweeping, organic lines that seemed to flow rather than connect, typical Australian biomechanical engineering. At Alaric's nod, Patel opened the communication channel. The face that appeared was similar to Taylor's but older, the markings more elaborate. Commander Jensen, the Australia official said. I am Delegate Voresh. We request permission to send a shuttle to inspect our property and ensure it is being properly maintained. Alaric felt rather than saw Taylor stiffen beside him. She is not property, he replied evenly. But we welcome representatives of the Australian Confederation as diplomatic guests. The delegate's expression didn't change, but something cold entered his tone. The document of ownership gives you certain rights, Commander, but not the right to redefine our customs. We will board in 1 standard hour. When the transmission ended, Alaric turned to find Taylor's silver eyes fixed on him, something unreadable in their depths. You shouldn't have done that, she said softly. Now they will watch you more closely. Who are you, really? He asked. No handmaiden warrants a diplomatic inspection. For a moment, he thought she might finally reveal the truth. Instead, she stepped closer, close enough that he could feel the strange, electric warmth radiating from her skin. If you wish to survive this encounter, Commander, she whispered, you must play the role of master. Treat me as property while they are aboard. Otherwise, neither of us will reach Europa alive. Her proximity sent an unexpected wave of heat through him, confusing and intense. She smelled like ozone and something sweeter, alien but intoxicating. I don't know if I can do that, he admitted. Taylor's hand brushed his, the contact sending a jolt of electricity up his arm. Then learn quickly, she said, or the game ends before it's truly begun. The Australian delegation had been aboard the Venture Star for 3 excruciating hours. Throughout their inspection, Alaric had forced himself to play the role Taylor had urged, speaking to her curtly, issuing commands rather than requests, avoiding the easy camaraderie they had developed. Each moment of the charade had felt like swallowing broken glass. Your property appears adequately maintained, Delegate Voresh concluded as they prepared to depart. His silver eyes, so similar to Taylor's yet lacking their warmth, surveyed Alaric with clinical detachment. Though I note you have granted her unusual freedoms. Earth customs, Alaric replied with forced casualness. We find productivity increases with certain illusions of autonomy. Primitive, but understandable. Vorash's gaze shifted to Taylor, who stood with head bowed, the perfect picture of submission. Remember your place, girl. The honor of House Nari rests upon your obedience to your new master. Only after the Australia shuttle had departed and the diplomatic vessel had disappeared into the darkness of space did Taylor's posture relax. The transformation was immediate, her spine straightening, her eyes lifting, intelligence and fire returning to her expression. You performed adequately, she said, the ghost of a smile playing at her lips. I hated every second of it, Alaric admitted. Now will you tell me what's really going on? Who are you to warrant such scrutiny? Before she could answer, the ship lurched violently, throwing them both against the corridor wall. The emergency sirens wailed as Lieutenant Patel's voice came over the comm, Commander to the bridge. We're under attack. When they reached the bridge, chaos reigned. The view screen showed 3 unmarked vessels firing upon them, sleek, predatory ships designed for speed and aggression. Pirates, Patel explained tersely. They appeared the moment the Australia left. Our shields are holding at 60%, but they're targeting our propulsion systems. Evasive maneuvers, Alaric ordered, taking his command chair. Armed defense systems. Our weapons are no match for their technology, Taylor said quietly from beside him. Those are modified Krell hunters, black market ships with Cartelian weapon systems. Alaric shot her a questioning look. That's not knowledge a handmaiden should have. No, she agreed simply, then stepped forward. Let me help. Without waiting for permission, she moved to an auxiliary control panel. Her slender fingers danced over the interface, the bioluminescent patterns beneath her skin pulsing rapidly as she bypassed security protocols with frightening ease. What are you? Alaric began, but fell silent as the ship's systems began responding to her commands, rerouting power in configurations he'd never seen before. Targeting their propulsion matrix, Taylor announced, her voice taking on a commanding tone that transformed her completely. Sending electromagnetic pulse on modified frequency. The view screen showed a burst of energy emanating from the Venture star, invisible to human eyes but rendering the enemy ship suddenly sluggish and vulnerable. Fire now, she instructed. Their shields are temporarily compromised. Alaric nodded to his weapons officer, who unleashed the ship's modest defensive capabilities with surgical precision. Within minutes, the pirate vessels were retreating, one trailing debris from a damaged engine. The bridge fell silent as all eyes turned to Taylor. The luminescence beneath her skin had intensified during the battle, revealing intricate patterns that resembled circuit diagrams more than decorative markings. I believe, Alaric said into the stunned silence, we're overdue for a conversation. 20 minutes later, they faced each other in his private quarters, the only space aboard ship guaranteed to be free from surveillance. I am Taylor Navari Celine, she said finally. Chief xenobiologist of the Australia Science Academy and third daughter of House Nari. A princess, Alaric said flatly. A scientist, she corrected. My research focuses on emergent space-faring species, particularly humans. When your mission was announced, I arranged to be stationed on the trading outpost. As bait, you arranged to be gambled away. Her silver eyes met his unflinchingly. It was the most efficient way to gain extended access to a human vessel and crew. Ambassador Kelnari is my aunt. The game was predetermined. The revelation should have angered him, being manipulated, used as a research subject, but instead, Alaric found himself fascinated by her determination. You risked everything for your research? My people have watched yours for centuries, she explained. Your species advances quickly, adapts rapidly. Some among the Australia Council fear you. Others wish to exploit your potential. I believe understanding must precede judgment. In the artificial gravity of the ship, her luminescence seemed to flow downward like liquid light beneath her skin. Alaric became aware of how close they were standing, of the electric charge that seemed to dance between them. And what have you learned about humans so far? He asked, his voice dropping lower. Taylor moved closer, her silver eyes studying his face with scientific precision but undeniable personal interest. That you are unpredictable, she murmured. That your emotions drive your actions as much as your logic. That you, Alaric Jensen, refused to accept ownership of another sentient being even when interstellar law would have permitted it. Her hand rose to his face, fingertips hovering just above his skin, generating a tingling field of energy between them. "And I've learned," she continued, her voice barely above a whisper, "that proximity to you affects my bioluminescent responses in ways that cannot be explained by my research parameters." The admission hung between them, both scientific observation and something far more intimate. "Maybe some things aren't meant to be researched," Alaric suggested, closing the distance between them until her fingertips finally made contact with his skin, sending a shockwave of sensation through him. "Maybe they're meant to be experienced." The Europa outpost loomed ahead on the view screen, a gleaming human settlement built into the icy moon's surface. After the pirate attack, the remainder of their journey had passed in a strange limbo, Taylor's revelation changing everything between them while changing nothing about their outward circumstances. "The Australia High Council has requested your presence," Alaric said, reviewing the transmission that had arrived moments earlier. "Apparently, word of the pirate attack has reached them." "They're concerned I was nearly damaged," Taylor remarked with sardonic humor. In the weeks since revealing her true identity, she had shown more of her personality, brilliant, occasionally arrogant, with an unexpected appreciation for human idioms and humor. "You're still technically my property under galactic law," he reminded her. "Will you tell them the truth about your research mission?" She shook her head, the luminescent patterns beneath her skin pulsing with what he now recognized as anxiety. "Not yet. The research is unsanctioned. If they discover I engineered my own transfer to your possession." The word hung between them, a reminder of the legal fiction that had brought them together. A fiction that had grown increasingly difficult to maintain as their feelings deepened. The previous night remained vivid in Alaric's memory, Taylor in his quarters, ostensibly to continue her research observations, but their scientific discussions eventually giving way to more personal revelations. Her fingertips tracing the contours of his face, the electric charge of her touch sending currents of pleasure through his nerve endings. His own hands hovering above the luminescent patterns of her skin, her whispered permission to make contact, and the startling intensity when he did, her bioluminescence flaring so brightly it had bathed the room in ultraviolet light. They hadn't gone further, both aware of the complications their positions created, but the connection between them had intensified beyond denying. "We'll travel to the Australia delegation together," Alaric decided. "As your legal owner, I have that right." Taylor's expression softened. "You continue to surprise me, Commander. Most humans would distance themselves from such political complications." "Most humans haven't," he stopped himself, uncertain how to define what had grown between them. "Haven't what?" she prompted, moving closer. The bridge doors slid open before he could respond, Lieutenant Patel entering with docking procedures already underway. 3 hours later, they stood before the Australia High Council's representatives in the diplomatic section of Europa Station. The chamber's architecture was a carefully negotiated blend of human functionality and Australia organic aesthetics, symbolic of the tentative alliance between their species. "We are concerned about the security incident," Elder Kazevan stated, his ancient face bearing luminescent patterns that had long ago settled into rigid, traditional formations. "Property of such value should not be exposed to danger." Alaric managed to keep his expression neutral, though his hands clenched at his sides. "Taylor proved invaluable during the attack. Without her knowledge, we might not have survived." "Unusual knowledge for a handmaiden," observed another council member, her silver eyes narrowing suspiciously. "I received advanced defensive training to better serve House Nari," Taylor interjected smoothly. "My current master has allowed me to utilize these skills for the ship's protection." Alaric felt a flicker of admiration for her quick thinking, even as he chafed at hearing her call him master. "Nevertheless," Elder Kazevan continued, "we believe her value is too great to risk. The Council has authorized me to offer repurchase at triple the equivalent value of your original wager." The word struck Alaric like a physical blow. They wanted to take her back, to separate them just as their connection was deepening, just as they were beginning to understand one another. "She's not for sale," he said, his voice firmer than intended. The council members exchanged glances, their bioluminescent patterns pulsing in what he recognized as their nonverbal communication. "You misunderstand," Elder Kazevan said coldly. "This is not a request. The Australia Confederation has decided." Taylor stepped forward, her posture subtly changing. For the first time since entering the chamber, she stood with the authority of her true rank. "I invoke the right of research continuity," she announced in formal Australia language, which Alaric's translator rendered with a slight delay. As chief xenobiologist, I declare my ongoing study of human customs critical to interspecies relations. A shocked silence fell over the chamber. Elder Kazivan's ancient eyes widened, the patterns beneath his skin flaring with surprise. You claim research status? He asked incredulously. Without council approval? The Science Academy granted preliminary authorization, she replied, the partial truth delivered with perfect confidence. The data I've gathered is unprecedented. Removing me now would compromise months of observation. The council members conferred in rapid, untranslatable pulses of light beneath their skin. Finally, Elder Kazivan spoke again. We will review your research parameters and make a final determination in 3 standard days. Until then, you will remain with the human, but both of you will stay on Europa Station where you can be monitored. After the council departed, Alaric and Taylor were escorted to guest quarters within the diplomatic section. The moment the door closed behind them, he turned to her. 3 days, he said. Then what? Taylor's luminescence dimmed to a soft glow, a sign he now recognized as intimacy rather than distress. Then we may be separated. Unless... She stepped closer, eliminating the careful distance they had maintained in public. Her fingers found his, intertwining in a gesture that sent cascades of sensation up his arm. Unless, he whispered. Unless we give them a reason to keep us together, she said. A diplomatic reason that transcends ownership. Her free hand rose to his face, the electrical field of her touch making his skin tingle with anticipation. This time, there was no hesitation in her movement, no scientific detachment, only the unmistakable desire he had glimpsed in flashes over their weeks together. I've studied humans extensively, she murmured, but there are some experiences that research alone cannot capture. As her lips finally met his, alien yet perfectly matched, the contact sending pulses of light racing beneath her skin, Alaric understood that they had crossed a threshold from which neither could return. Whatever came next would redefine not just their relationship, but potentially the future of human-Australia relations. For tonight, however, diplomacy could wait. The Grand Hall of the Australia Confederation gleamed with organic bioluminescence, its architecture a testament to their ancient civilization. Alaric stood before the full High Council, acutely aware of being one of the few humans ever granted this privilege. Beside him, Taylor radiated a steady glow, her formal attire marking her status as both scientist and nobility. 3 days had become 3 weeks of negotiations, escalating from Europa Station to the Australia homeworld itself. Their relationship, once hidden, had become the centerpiece of unprecedented diplomatic discussions. The Council has reviewed your research, Taylor Navari Celine, Elder Kazivan announced, his ancient voice echoing through the chamber. We find your methods unorthodox, but your results compelling. Taylor inclined her head respectfully, though Alaric could see the tension in her posture. The previous night, wrapped in each other's arms, they had acknowledged the possibility that today might end with their permanent separation. Their time together on Europa Station had transformed them both. Alaric had learned to understand the subtle language of her bioluminescence, how it intensified with passion, softened with tenderness, pulsed in rhythm with her heartbeat when they lay together in the darkness. For her part, Taylor had embraced the emotional openness humans offered, abandoning the cool scientific detachment of her initial approach. However, Elder Kazivan continued, the matter of ownership remains problematic. Our laws are clear. A transfer of ownership, once recorded in Galactic Registry, cannot simply be nullified. Then change the law, Alaric said, stepping forward. A murmur rippled through the assembled council members at his boldness. Your civilization has existed for millennia, evolving beyond technologies my people can barely comprehend. Surely your legal system can evolve as well. You presume much, human, a council member objected. I speak from experience, Alaric countered. In the time Taylor has spent with me, she's never been my property, she's been my equal, my colleague, and eventually, much more. He turned to her, taking her hand publicly for the first time before the council. The luminescence beneath her skin brightened at his touch, visible evidence of what flowed between them. I don't want ownership, he continued. I want partnership. And I believe your society is advanced enough to recognize when tradition becomes a barrier to growth. Taylor's fingers tightened around his, her voice steady as she addressed her own people. My research was intended to study humans objectively. Instead, I discovered something unexpected, a species whose emotional capacity enhances rather than diminishes their intellectual potential. She touched the ceremonial markings on her temples, symbols of her house and status. Among humans, I am valued for my knowledge and character, not for my lineage or assigned role. Their society, while younger than ours, has evolved past certain hierarchies that we maintain through tradition rather than necessity. You speak of abandoning millennia of social order, another elder protested. I speak of evolution, Taylor corrected. The same process that allowed our species to develop bioluminescent communication while humans developed verbal language. Different paths, neither inherently superior. A ripple of light communication passed through the council members, too complex for Alaric's translator to interpret. Finally, Elder Kazivan spoke again. What do you propose, daughter of House Nari? Taylor released Alaric's hand and stepped forward. With ceremonial precision, she removed the insignia of her house from her formal robes. I renounce my status as property, she declared. Not to become masterless, but to become an equal partner to this human, Commander Alaric Jensen. She held out the insignia to Elder Kazivan. I asked the council to recognize a new form of interspecies relationship. Neither ownership nor servitude, but mutual commitment and respect. The silence that followed was absolute. Alaric held his breath, knowing that this moment would either unite them forever or separate them permanently. Such a relationship has no precedent in our laws. Elder Kazivan said finally. Then we will create one, Taylor replied simply. Is not the purpose of law to serve civilization rather than constrain it? The grand hall erupted in light communication, council members' bioluminescence flashing in complex patterns of debate. Alaric stood steady beside Taylor, ready to face whatever came next together. When the council finally reached consensus, Elder Kazivan's expression was unreadable, but his voice carried authority that silenced the chamber. The council recognizes that evolution applies to customs as well as biology. We hereby establish a new category of interspecies relationship, partnership bond, with legal standing equal to traditional ownership bonds but without hierarchical implications. He turned to Alaric. Commander Jensen, do you accept this partnership bond with Taylor Navari Celine, with all rights and responsibilities such a bond entails? I do, Alaric replied without hesitation. And Taylor Navari Celine, do you accept this partnership bond with Commander Alaric Jensen of Earth? Her silver eyes met Alaric's, the luminescence beneath her skin pulsing in a pattern he now recognized as love. I do, she said, her voice soft but carrying through the chamber. Elder Kazivan nodded solemnly. Then by the authority of the High Council, I declare this bond recognized throughout Australia space. Furthermore, we shall propose its recognition to the Galactic Alliance as a new framework for interspecies relations. As they left the Grand Hall, Alaric felt the weight of history on their shoulders. What had begun as an uncomfortable acquisition had transformed into something revolutionary, a new beginning not just for them, but potentially for their species. Your research is completed, he said as they walked together beneath the purple sky of her homeworld. What will you do now? Taylor's luminescence shifted to the intimate glow reserved only for him. I believe further study is required, she said, her fingers intertwining with his. A lifetime of observation, at minimum. Alaric smiled, pulling her closer. I'm willing to be your research subject indefinitely. Not subject, she corrected, her lips brushing his. Partner. As they sealed their new bond with a kiss that sent cascades of light flowing beneath her skin, Alaric reflected that sometimes the most valuable discoveries came not from owning something, but from having the courage to set it free. Around them, the first stars of evening appeared in the alien sky, the same stars that would guide them back to Earth, then onward to new worlds, new challenges, and new possibilities. Together,